In this video, I will show you how to implement Facebook Conversions API on Shopify with server-side Google Tag Manager. There are a lot of things to cover, so let's dive in. The setup that I will explain in this video will look like this. You'll have your Shopify website. Then on that website, there is a Google Tag Manager container. Inside that container, we will create data tags developed by Stape, and those tags will be configured to send data to our server-side Google Tag Manager. And then from there, we will send data to Facebook Conversions API. For some businesses, this actually might be enough, but if you want, you can take an additional step and also implement Facebook Pixel in the web container and send the same events to Facebook as well. In that case, each event will happen twice. So one purchase from the server, one purchase from the Pixel, and we will deduplicate those events with a thing called Event ID. And if for some reason, let's say a browser extension blocks Facebook Pixel, then our server-side setup should still handle that kind of event and send it to Facebook, at least in most cases. So here I have a demo Shopify website. On this website, I have installed Google Tag Manager with Stape's plugin. In that plugin, I have injected the WebGTM script. I have also mapped a custom domain. I have enabled custom lawyer and cookie keeper. Also in the data layer tab, I followed their instructions to implement this custom code, which is available in the settings of the website, then customer events and custom pixels. So by following those instructions listed right here, I created a pixel that helps tracking purchases at the checkout. So on this website, I have a Google Tag Manager container. Right now it's empty. I also have a server Google Tag Manager container. That one is hosted on Stape. And soon we will configure necessary things to start sending data to Facebook Conversions API. If you don't have Stape installed, but you want to do that, then I will post a link to a tutorial below the video where I explain how to create an account, how to install the extension, what kind of configuration should you do there, and actually even more things. So if you haven't done that yet, then go watch that first, then you can come back here. But if you have already installed Google Tag Manager on a website, I mean both web container and server container is configured, then you're ready to continue. First, let's start with the website Google Tag Manager. Let's go to templates, then in tag templates, click search gallery, and then search for data tag. Select this one, add to workspace, add, and then let's go to tags and create our first tag that will track page views. Click new, tag configuration, then select data tag. Here, keep the event as page view. Then here we can enter the server container URL. In my case, that URL is this one. Technically, I could enter it manually, but since there will be more tags that use the same value, I could create a variable. So I will click here, then click plus to create a new variable. Its type should be constant, and the value here should be the URL of my server-side container. So copy and paste it. Then remove the trailing slash, and let's call this const server-side container URL, and then save. Then let's keep all the other settings as they are, but we can go to settings and then disable this checkbox and fire this tag on DOM ready. This trigger is not available in the container by default. That's why we will need to create it. So click on triggering, then click plus, trigger configuration, and DOM ready. Then let's call this DOM ready and click save. Then let's name this tag and click save. Let's test if this is working. So I will click preview to enable the preview mode, then enter the URL of your website, click connect. And then at the same time, you should also go to your server container and click preview. I already have it, but I can close it and then click preview again. Now let's go back to the website, refresh the page, and we should see that page view coming in right here. So if I click the event, go to request and click on the incoming request, I can see what kind of information was sent. Stape's Shopify plugin supports various e-commerce events, but to make this tutorial at least a bit shorter, I will just show you several examples, which is page view, then add to cart, and then purchase. But if you wanted to implement the whole setup, then you would also need to create things like begin checkout event, view item list, and so on. But since the setup of those events is pretty much similar to what I will show you, I think add to cart and purchase is enough. Now let's go to the website, add a product to a cart, and see what we have in the website preview mode. I will go to the product page, then add to cart. And then if I go back to the preview mode, I will see add to cart Stape. If I expand it, I will see what kind of information was available in the data layer. So this was made possible by its Stape's plugin. Now let's go to the website Google Tag Magic Container. I will go to the page view and I will make a copy. So click 3 dots right here and copy. The next step is add to cart. Here in the tag settings, let's change the event to add to cart. The server side URL should remain the same. These settings right here should also remain the same, but then in the event data, we can send additional information. For example, the currency, total value of the cart, and several other things. First, I will enter currency. It's available in the data layer right here. Then I will add value, and then we can add 2 more parameters. One is for contents, the other one is content IDs. These parameters are supported by Facebook Conversions API, but to make sure that these parameters are quite distinguishable, we can enter something like meta content IDs. Later in the server-side container, we will map this to be proper parameter names. And then the other one is meta contents. And then let's include the values. So for currency, we will need to create a data layer variable, which is this one. So its name will be ecommerce.currency. We can click here to create a data layer variable. So click plus, then variable configuration and data layer variable. And let's type e-commerce currency. Then let's give this variable a name and click save. And do the same thing for the value. So value will be ecommerce.value. So I will click here, then a new variable, which is data layer variable, and then ecommerce.value. And let's give this variable a name and click save. Now we have content IDs and contents. Facebook requires a particular data structure, and that structure is different from what we have right here. So we have to somehow transform this into a format that is supported by Facebook. Luckily, there is a custom variable template that can do that for us.
By the way, I release Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager tutorials every week. If you want consistent flow of fresh knowledge and to stay up to date, then subscribe to this channel. It will help us a lot.
Below this video, you will find a link to a GitHub repository of the universal conversions variable. Here, click on template.tpl, then click 3 dots, download, and then go to your website Google Tag Magic Container. For now, I will save this tag and I will return to it soon. Now let's go to templates. Then in the variable templates section, click new, click 3 dots, import, and then I will select that template, open, and click save. Once the template is created, then you can close this, go to variables, and then create a new variable of which type is universal conversions variable. Here select metapixel/CAPI as platform. And now first we want to create a content IDs list of products. So we can click here. Then we have to enter an input array. An array is a list, so that list right here is inside items. Items is a list. Right now it's just one product, but for example, with the purchase event, you might have multiple products in the same list. So let's create a data layer variable, ecommerce.items. Here in this field, I will click the button and create a new variable, which is data layer variable, and its name is ecommerce.items. Then let's save the variable and click save. And then we have to map it. So product ID is available as item ID. That's why we will enter item ID. Product name is available as item name. So I will enter item name. Then product price is available as just price. So enter price. And then product quantity is available as quantity right here. So like this. Then let's name this variable. Let's call this meta content IDs and click save. So this is the first variable. The other variable will be for contents. It looks a bit different, but we can still use the same variable template. So I will click new, variable configuration, universal conversions variable, and this time I will create contents. It's still metapixel CAPI. Then the input array is that same items variable. And then here we will enter item ID, item name, then price and quantity. Let's save this variable, meta contents, and then click save. Now let's go back to the add to cart tag. and edit it to include this information. So in the event data, meta content IDs will be content IDs variable, and then here we will insert contents. Now let's save the tag and test if this is working. So click preview to refresh the preview mode, and then I will go to the website, add a product to a cart. That event appeared in my server-side containers preview mode. And then if I click that event, I go to the incoming HTTP request. I can see what kind of information was received. This is not very readable, but if I copy this value right here, and I go to Google search and enter base64 decode, then go to the website and paste that value and click decode, you will see what kind of information was sent. And we have things like content information and also content IDs, but that's just one ID. So this is working fine. And now let's proceed with the purchase event. So first I will go to add to cart, then click three dots, copy, then let's name this purchase, then change the name to purchase right here. The checkout of Shopify is fairly limiting when it comes to data tracking. So to avoid certain limitations, you should click this checkbox. It will allow to pass certain cookie information from your website to the server container, which is especially important at the checkout. At the storefront of the website, this checkbox is not necessary because the limitations are not that strict. Then we will add some additional information in the event data, but we don't know yet what kind of information. So first, let's save this tag as it is, and let's go to the website and complete the purchase. Now, when it comes to checkout tracking, Shopify is quite limiting, which means that Google Tag Manager's preview mode will not work. Instead, if you want to do anything there, you will first need to publish your website Google Tag Manager container. So I will click submit right here, click publish, continue. And then I will close the preview mode. I will close the website. Then I will go to my website without the preview mode, and I will click on a product, then buy it now. And then here at the checkout, I will need to open the developer tools. So you can click three dots right here, more tools, developer tools, and then go to the console. Then clear the console and complete the purchase. I already have some information, so I will just enter the remaining info and click pay now. Once the payment is made, we want to check the data layer and what kind of information is there. If you just try to type data layer right here, it won't work because, again, checkout is quite limiting. Instead, you have to click right here on top and then change the environment to WebPixel Sandbox Custom and then some number. Then here, type data layer with the uppercase L, and you will see what kind of information was pushed to the data layer. So the reason why we're doing this is because at the checkout, your tracking codes are sort of like in a sandbox. That's why we selected that sandbox, and now we are looking at the information. And here is purchase Stape. And here we have the e-commerce information, and also we have user data. So first let's focus on the e-commerce data. So here we have the transaction ID. Let's try sending that. So let's go to our web Google Tag Manager container, tags. Oh, and by the way, I realized that triggers in all tags are incorrect. So for the page view, trigger should remain DOM ready, while on add to cart, the trigger should be a different one. So I will go to triggering, delete this one, then add another trigger, which is a custom trigger. So I will click the plus icon right here, trigger configuration, and then custom event. The name of that event is add to cart with all lowercase letters and underscores, and then underscore Stape. Then let's give this trigger a name and click save. Then save the tag. Now for the purchase tag, the trigger should also be not DOM ready, but another trigger. So click plus right here, trigger configuration, then custom event, and let's go to the console. Here the event name is purchase underscore Stape. And then let's name this trigger and click save. Now let's go back to the event data. So as I've said, I want to also send a transaction ID. So transaction ID like this, and its value should be a data layer variable. So let me expand that. And we have e-commerce and then dot transaction ID. So let's create a variable for that. which is a data layer variable, and then e-commerce.transaction ID. Then let's give this variable a name and click Save. Then we can also send some user data. For example, if you go to another part of this data layer push, which is user data, here you will see email, first name, last name, and so on. Technically, I could send all of this, but I will be sending just email because this tutorial is already quite long, so I will save some time. But if this was a real project, I would also send country, city, first name, last name, and so on. Now let's go to the website Google Tag Magic container, then user data, add row, and let's keep this as email address. And then I will create a data layer variable, which should use the following name. It's userdata.email. Now let's give this variable a name and click Save. So it looks like everything else is correct, and I can click Save. Now, if this was a real project, I would click Preview to refresh the preview mode and then test the purchase and check if the purchase event was received right here and the data is correct. But this time, just because the tutorial is already quite long, I will skip that part. Now let's go to the server Google Tag Magic container and configure things related to Meta Conversions API there. First of all, we have to go to templates and then import a template. Below this video, I will post a link to a GitHub repository where you can find the data client. Open that link, click on template.tpl, then click three dots, download, and go to your server-side container. And in client templates, click new, three dots, import, and then select that file and open. Then click save. And once the template is created, you can close it, go to clients, and then create a new client. So click new, client configuration, data client, and keep all settings as they are. Let's name this tag data client and click save. Then let's go and import another template, which is for Facebook Conversions API. So click templates, then in tag templates, click search gallery, and then enter Facebook Conversion API and take this template, then add to workspace, add, and then let's go to tags and create our first Facebook Conversions API tag. So click new, tag configuration, then Facebook Conversions API. Then the first tag will be for the page view. So you can click override, then page view, action source should be website. And then you have to enter Facebook Conversions API access token and then Facebook Pixel ID. You can find them in your Facebook Events Manager. So go to Events Manager, then find your data set, then click on your particular pixel and go to Settings. And dataset ID is the pixel ID. So click here, then let's go to the server container. And we will be using this multiple times. That's why it makes sense to create a variable. So go to Facebook Pixel ID field, click the button here, and then create a new variable. The variable configuration should be using constant as its type, and then paste that ID. And then you can call this const meta pixel ID and click save. Then let's get our API access token. So let's go back to the Events Manager and the settings of your pixel, scroll down and keep looking for something that mentions access token. And you might find a button right here somewhere saying generate access token, but I have already done that. So I have this token, I will copy it, and then I will use it in the server container. So in this field, click the button, then click plus, variable configuration, and then constant, and paste that token. Then let's name this const meta access token and click save. Then keep these fields empty. Then on page views, we usually don't have any user data, so this will remain empty. This part, we will use that a bit later. And then in custom data, we also don't have much. That's why we will just keep it as it is. Now, if we go to the preview mode of the server container, we have the page view event right here. So we want to fire that Conversions API tag on every page view that comes from the data tag. Therefore, we have to create a trigger for this tag. So click triggering, then click plus, trigger configuration, and then enter custom, where two conditions must be met. The first one is event name equals page view, exactly as it is right here. If you don't see the event name, then click choose built-in variable. And then let's add a second condition, which is client name equals, and then data client. That's the name that I used when I created a client. Now, this is important. If you entered client name like this, then this is case sensitive and you should also use the uppercase C right here. But I used that one. So let's call this right now data client page view and click save. Finally, let's name this tag and click save. Now let's test if this is working. So click preview. Then let's go to the website container, click preview there, then connect. And this will trigger a new page view, or technically I could have just reloaded the home page in this tab. So I have the page view, I have the tag fired, it succeeded, and it sent this request to Facebook. Later in this video, I will show you how to use the test events section, but right now this seems fine. By the way, did you know that I have a bunch of free ebooks on Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics? So if you want to better learn these topics, then click the link below the video, download those ebooks, and get started. Now let's create an add to cart tag. So here in the server container, I will go to the page view tag. I will click 3 dots, copy, and then rename this to add to cart, and then change the event name here. All other fields right here should remain the same. And then let's add certain parameters related to add to cart. For example, what kind of products were added, what was the cart value, and so on. That can be done in the custom data section right here. And here we will add several parameters. So the first one is content IDs. This is a list of products that are in the cart, then contents, then value, and then currency. So the content IDs are actually already available with the incoming add to cart event. So first I will go to the website and trigger that event. So I will click on a product, then add to cart, and here's the add to cart event. Now if I go to the event data, and here I have meta content IDs. So basically I will just need to create a variable for this. It can be done fairly easily. In the property value field, I will click this button and I will create a new variable with the type event data. And I will enter that key right here because that's the name of the key in the preview mode. Then let's call this ED, which is event data, and then the name. Click save. And then I'll do the same thing for contents. So for contents, it should be meta contents. So copy that, then click the button, create a variable, give it a name, and click save. Now the value, it is available somewhere right here as just value. So let's create a variable for that. And again, event data, value, and then name it ed value. Click save. Finally, the currency, it is available right here. So let's insert a variable that we are going to create. It's event name, oh sorry, not event name, it's event data, and then currency. Give this variable a name and click save. So this seems fine. The only thing which is remaining is the triggering. Instead of page view, we will use another event name, which is add to cart. So I will remove this trigger and then create a new trigger. Click plus, trigger configuration, custom, and then some events where client name equals data client and event name equals add to cart. And then let's call this data client add to cart. Click save. Let's save this tag. And again, I could test this, but just to make this tutorial a bit shorter, I will just make a copy of this and proceed with the purchase. So click copy, then rename the tag, then change the event name here to purchase. Keep all these settings as they are. Then we can add some additional information in the content IDs section. All of these are relevant, but we can also include a thing called order ID. And this will be available in our event data section right here as transaction ID. So let's just click the button here, click plus, variable configuration, event data, and then enter transaction ID and give this variable a name and save it. Also, we should send some user data because at the purchase, that data is available. In the web container, we had a purchase tag right here and we were sending the email address, that email address in the event tab right here will be available as email_address. So let's go to the user data section, click add property, email, and then here we will create an event data variable, which is just email address. Later in this video, I will show you where exactly to find it. Now let's give this variable a name and click save. Then let's change the trigger in this tag. So instead of add to cart, I will add another trigger where client name equals data client, and then event name equals purchase all lowercase. And then let's call this trigger like this and click save. And finally, let's save the tag. Let's test if everything is working properly. For that, we will be using the test events feature in the events manager. So here I will go to test events, then confirm your server's events are set up correctly, expand that, and you will get the test ID. Copy that ID, then go to your server container and add that ID to all tags. So let's go to add to cart tag and add it right here. Technically, you could use more automated feature for this, like lookup table, but I will keep this simple and I will just have this test ID entered like this. Click save, then do the same thing for page view and for purchase. Let's refresh the server preview mode. Then let's go to the web container and publish these changes so that we know that the latest version is live. This is needed for the testing of the checkout process. So after you click submit, then click publish and continue. Now close the website preview mode, close the website with the preview mode, and then here I will go to my home page. And here I should already see the first page view. Then let's click on a product, add a product to a cart. Here we have the add to cart. And then let's go to checkout and complete the purchase and click pay now. Now let's see what is happening in the preview mode. And on all of these events, I see that my tags fired, but they have failed on the add to cart and on purchase. So let's click here, then the outgoing request and see what we have here. It says that I'm not sending the currency, although I am. So let me check why that is happening. I will go to add to cart. And here I see the currency parameter and I see currency without N. So this is most likely the reason why it's not working. I will go back to variables, then fix the currency here and click save. Then refresh the preview mode. Then I will make another purchase very quickly. All right, I've made another purchase. Now let's go to the preview mode and I see that on page view, the event fired, add to cart fired, purchase fired. Now, if I go to the test events section, I see page view, I see add to cart. It was deduplicated because I've been setting and testing and playing around with this for a while. So Facebook thinks that these are all duplicates, but in your case, it would not be deduplicated. So I have page view. If I click it, I see some information. Then if I click add to cart, I see the product information, but I am not seeing purchase. So let me check why is that happening. If I go to the server container, I have the purchase, but I did not change the event here. That's probably my mistake. So as you can see, testing is always worth your time. Now, if I click preview to refresh that again, and now I will just pause the video, complete the purchase, and then we'll continue testing. All right, I've done another payment, and this time I have the add to cart, I have page views, and I also have the purchase. And together with that purchase, I also have user data, additional user data like email. If I send first name, last name, I would also see them right here. So as you can see, this is working fine. So the fundamental setup now is done. If you wanted to go live with this, then you would need to go to your tags in the server container and then delete test IDs and only then publish. Your live setup should not be using test IDs, but I will need this because now I want to show you how to also combine server-side setup with Facebook Pixel. This part will be faster because we already have created a lot of items in the web container. So let's go to your web container, workspace, then templates, then in tag templates, click search gallery. and then search for Facebook Pixel by Stape, add to workspace, add, and then when that is done, go to tags, click new, tag configuration, select Facebook Pixel by Stape, then let's enter the Facebook Pixel ID. You can get that in the settings of your dataset, so copy dataset ID, and then let's create a variable for that. So click plus here, variable configuration, constant, and then paste this. Then let's name it constant Facebook Pixel ID, save, then keep the event name as page view. Then you can disable this, but then we will enable advanced matching, then click here and here. So basically it will enrich your events with additional user data if that data was already available in some of the previous events. Then when it comes to all other sections, they can remain unchanged, except maybe in other settings. I usually prefer disabling automatic configuration and then history event tracking. Then here in the triggering, we will use DOM ready, and let's call this Facebook Pixel page view. Click save. Now let's click on this page view tag again, make a copy for the add to cart. Then change the event name to add to cart right here. Then let's take a look at other settings. So user data can remain as it is. Then in object properties, we can include some additional information about the products that were added to the cart. So let's add a property called value, then currency, then contents, and then content IDs. So here we will be able to reuse all of the variables that we have already created. In the value field, click the button and choose e-commerce value. In currency, choose e-commerce currency. Then in contents, select meta contents, and then in content IDs, select meta content IDs. Then let's select a trigger. What's important in this case, that the trigger of this tag is the same as of the add to cart data tag. So click on triggering, remove this trigger, and instead add the add to cart Stape, and then click save. So again, I want to emphasize that add to cart here and add to cart here should use the same trigger. The same applies to page view, and the same will apply to the purchase tag. Now let's copy the add to cart tag, and I will turn it into a purchase. Here I will change the event name to purchase. Then we have user data. So since I was sending user email with the data tag, I can also send it right here. So in the user data section, click add property, email, and then insert that user data email parameter right here. If you have configured more user data in the data tag, then configure that same data right here. Then in object properties, we can reuse all of this, plus we can add order ID, and its value should be e-commerce transaction ID. Then finally, let's remove this trigger and let's add the purchase trigger and click save. So now we have two streams of data. One is going through the server-side container, and the other one will be going through the Facebook Pixel. However, if the same purchase is sent here and also sent right here, then we will have duplicate data. So we have to tell Facebook that some purchases are same purchases, so they should be deduplicated. And that can be done with a thing called Event ID. Let's go to the website Google Tag Manager container, then templates. In the variable templates section, click search gallery, and then enter event ID and select unique event ID template. Add to workspace, add, and then let's go to tags. And we have to include that event ID in all of these tags. Let's start with the add to cart data tag. So event ID should be added in the event data section, then add row and enter event underscore ID. And then here we will need to insert a unique event ID variable. I have not created it yet, but I will do that right here. So click the button, then click plus, variable configuration, unique event ID, and then just save this tag. Then click save again, and it will be inserted right here. Click save. Now do the same thing for other data tags. Now let's go to Facebook Pixel tags. I will click on add to cart, and here we will go to server-side tracking, and here let's insert the unique event ID and click save. Now repeat the same process for all other Facebook pixel tags. All right, so now we are sending event ID to our server, and also we're sending the same event IDs directly to Facebook. Let's do the final test and see if this is working properly. So in the web container, click Submit to publish your changes. You can give this version a name, publish it. Then you can also refresh the preview mode in the server container, just in case. And then let's go to the Events Manager, Test Events, Clear Activity. And first, let's click on the Confirm Your Website Events. Click here, then enter your website URL, Test Events. This will open a new tab and will activate the preview mode, the Facebook preview mode. And we already have some events right here. I also got the page view event in my server. I see the tag fired. At this point, I still have not removed the test ID because I will need it, but after this is done, I will have to delete it. And here I have the two events, one page view from the browser, one from the server. If I click both of these, I will see that their event IDs are identical. That's because they're using the same trigger in Web Google Tag Manager container. And in fact, this event has even more information because Stape's template uses the user information from the previous attempts. For example, like 10 minutes ago, I made a purchase with my email. So that email persists for my future events. And this applies even to page views. So the page view works fine. Now let's go to the website. I will go to the home page, then click on a product, then add to cart. And here I will check and I will be waiting for two add to cart events. I got multiple page views because I was jumping back and forth while I'm recording this video, so don't worry about that. And I see one add to cart from server, one from browser, and I see the product information. And when it comes to making a purchase, the purchase event from the browser will not appear here because of some limitations, but I would still expect to see that event when I make a purchase right here in this list. However, we can still use developer tools to troubleshoot the outgoing Facebook pixel requests in the browser. So here I will click checkout. I will then enter my information. And before I make a purchase, I open developer tools, go to network. Then I will enter Facebook just to see Facebook's requests, and then let's make a purchase. So the purchase was made. This is the request that was sent to Facebook. And here I can see, even though it's not very readable, I can see the event name, which is purchase. And also if I scroll down, I will see the event ID. So this one ends with 7211. Now if I go to the test events section, purchase 7211, and this is the product that was purchased, and this is the user information that was sent. So as you can see, this is working fine. The final step is to remove those test IDs from your tags. So do it here, and then do that in all other tags. And publish these changes by clicking submit. Then give this version a name, for example, Facebook CAPI, and then publish. And that's how you can configure Facebook Conversions API on Shopify with server-side Google Tag Manager. If you found this video useful, hit the like button. That will help me understand what videos do you like and what should I create in the future. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics, then subscribe to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.